Why do you maintain we need a Royal Commission and not the government's proposal and all this National Commissioner for Defence and Veteran Suicide?
Well, the National Commissioner lacks scope, independence and resources. It's simply inadequate. It's an untested model. A Royal Commission, we've seen the benefits of it in aged care, disability, institutional child abuse. It's time for a Royal Commission, and the overwhelming feeling in the Australian public and the veterans community and families is we need to have a Royal Commission.
The proposal was for this role to be independent. What do you mean it lacks independence?
Well, originally, and it's been placed in the Attorney General's Department, and what it does is it really is a glorified federal coroner that's examining cases cut off to a certain period of time and reporting back to the government by September this year. I mean, anyone who's involved in coronial inquests know that they take a long time, and we feel that it's not dealing with the issue. In addition to that, they've appointed a person who's been a brigadier, not independent of the military or Veterans Affairs, and a friend of the Defence Minister for the last 20 years. We suggested someone like an independent, a retired Federal Court or Supreme Court judge might have been a better fit, but they didn't consult with us or the Veterans
But is that arguing over their format or who was going to oversee it?
Oh, it's both. Both, frankly. To be honest.
But if they changed who was doing it, would that make you more
the scope
amenable?
is not enough, and the resources, they're putting about $40 million across the Ford estimates. It's simply not good enough, the National Commissioner role. It's an untried, untested model. You may result in recommendations from a Royal Commission that we're in a position where some sort of standing body that's of a permanent nature. That may be, I'm not going to prejudge the outcome, but what the Prime Minister today really should do is call the Royal Commission. You've got no dissent, by the way, in the Senate, nor in the House of Representatives. So do the right thing. If there's any sort of moral authority, if democracy means anything, it's up to the Prime Minister now to do the right thing.
Isn't there also an advantage, though? This Commissioner can look at things as they're ongoing. If you have a Royal Commission, by definition, when that ends, that's when they stop looking at individual cases. This Commissioner can keep looking at things.
Well, so this Commissioner's actually got how to look at actually desktop reviews and having some meetings around the countryside initially, charging people who may have lost their loved ones $100 to have a meeting with her. I mean, that's what the government was doing until the media called it out and Labor and the crossbench.
Right, but let's deal with the idea as it is. Again, isn't there an advantage to the ongoing scope? You said scope was an issue. This would be an ongoing role.
But this is where a Royal Commission may result in some strong recommendations, broad recommendations, which the government must act upon.
What, including for a Commissioner itself?
No, I'm not going to prejudge the outcome, but one of the things about a Royal Commission, and we've seen it in the kind of areas I've talked about, it's how cathartic, how important it is for restoration and healing, how people can have a say, how people can say what they feel, what they've experienced. And that's so important in this sensitive area.
This Commissioner, and again, when you say it's a lack of scope, what specifically can they not do? They should be able to do.
They've cut off the period of time when they can look at it. They're looking at desktop reviews of previous suicides. They're not examining what's going on long term in the issue. There's no systemic analysis that a Royal Commission can do. We saw that in Aged Care Royal Commission. We saw how the Aged Care Royal Commission looked in a systemic way and came up with recommendations.
Why couldn't it look at systemic evidence?
Because that's not what the role is. That's not how it's operating.
Well, it looks into... It can have broad-ranging inquiries. It can hear from veterans and their families. It can conduct public and private hearings.
It's not what's happening. It's not what's happening.
Well, it's not happening because it hasn't been legislated. It can also compel the production of evidence and summon witnesses.
But you're not listening to the evidence that came out in the Senate inquiry, and it's not looking at how the government's actually operating in this space or in this area. So what we need is an independent person, independent of the military, independent of the Minister for Defence, who can actually make that call, make those decisions, have those public hearings so that people feel confident.
Okay, but again, this position could have public hearings.
It's not how it's operating, Tom. It's not how it's operating.
Well, it's not operating. It hasn't been legislated.
Well, actually, the interim role is acting as a desktop review and also having some meetings around the country without actually telling people that.
But what the government wanted to do that hasn't been legislated specifically mentions the ability for public and private hearings. Public hearings there, production of evidence, summoning witnesses and being able to launch their own inquiries.
But that's not the way it's operating, and it's not the way a Royal Commission would actually operate. What a Royal Commission would do would have public hearings, summon witnesses, produce documents, independent of government. This is a person that will operate under the Attorney General's Department, not independent of government in the same way a Royal Commission.
It literally lists them as independent. You don't believe that would be the case?
No, I don't. Well, that's not the way it's been set up.
Okay. What about the consideration of this ongoing role in addition to a Royal Commission?
I'm not going to prejudge the outcome of a Royal Commission, Tom. I'm not going to do that. But what we need to do is have that Royal Commission that look at a whole range of changes. They may make systemic recommendations in relation to the Department of Veterans Affairs, like the Productivity Commission did in the middle of 2019, which the government has responded to fully. There could be a whole range of areas.
Right, but if the government were to agree to a Royal Commission, but also wanted to set this up now, have it in place and be able to continue to look at any case that comes up into the future, would Labor support that?
We're not going to support the National Commissioner Bill and the National Commissioner as it's currently established. And the government has established an interim National Commissioner because we think it's a flawed, untested model. It hasn't proved what it says. And the government hasn't done what it said.
Would you look at amendments but still support it? This is a body that continues to look at future suicide, which tragically will happen, and Labor's saying there's no way you support it.
We're not going to look at it because it's a flawed, untested model that hasn't done what it's supposed to do, and it's not doing what the government's
why not make
actually
amendments to make it do what it should?
Because in the same way the IR legislation was flawed, this legislation is flawed as well.
Right, but hang on, but we'll change legislation then if it's flawed, suggest amendments.
It's a better option, a more independent
But I'm saying both. So Royal Commission is a snapshot in time. That's true, is it not? Royal Commission has an end date, has recommendations. This is ongoing. If 5 years we're seeing another spike in veteran suicide, there's someone there looking into it.
They haven't given the resources. You're talking about not the resources.
But why not? We'll suggest more money.
The government hasn't consulted. You talked about the government's consultation. They didn't consult us about the appointment of who should be appointed as the interim National Commissioner. They didn't discuss any.
Right, but they don't discuss a lot of things with you. Labor still suggests amendments to bills. Are you going to perhaps suggest a better way for this to work rather than just saying no?
We're saying no because it won't work, and it hasn't worked, and the government hasn't consulted with the community. It's the RSL Queensland, RSL New South Wales, Soldier On, RSL Victoria, veterans advocates like
RSL Federal, you missed out there.
New South Wales, Victoria, and Queensland all said it. All supported a Royal Commission.
The RSL, at the federal level, supports this commissioner. So does Legacy.
A number of organisations do, but overwhelmingly during the Senate inquiry, we saw the evidence that come through to support a Royal Commission and not the National Commissioner Bill.
Shayne Neuman, appreciate your time today.
Good to be with you.
And if you or anyone you know is feeling distressed, you can call Lifeline 13 11 14. There's also lifeline.org.au.